Facts to know. Known with various name, Aniko, Anige, or Araniko, was one of the key figures in the arts of Nepal and Yuan Dynasty of China, and the artistic exchanges in these areas. Arniko was the most famous and greatest Nepalese architect of our past glorious history. Arniko was not only famous in Nepal, but also in Tibet, China, Mongolia, as well as Indonesia. He is known for building the White Stupa at the MIAOYING Temple in Beijing. Arniko was born in 1244 in Kathmandu Valley, Nepal, during the reign of King Adhyamala. Arniko's real name was Balabahu. The Chinese called him Arniko. Aira means woman, and Niko means face-like, because he had delicate feminine features. Another meaning could be a Nika, or respectable brother, from Nepal. While Nepalese history does not have any record of Arniko, and everything that is known of him comes from Chinese accounts, Chinese history and Nepalese historian Babu Ramacharya opines that Arniko could possibly be from Patan, a place famous for sculptures and fine arts. As such, he would have been a Buddhist, but his Newar caste is open to speculation. However, it is known that Arniko lived in Kathmandu Valley during the reign of Jaya bin Devmala, the successor of Adhyamala. His grandfather's title is provided in the Chinese documents as Miti Ra, and grandmother as Kundi Lakime, which is Chinese pronunciation for Sanskrit designations Mitra and Kundalaksmi, respectively. The title of his father was Lakena, Lakshman, while the title of his mother was Shumaketai, Sumakhachi. As is often told in stories about professional artists, Arniko was an artistic prodigy, even in his early childhood. An anecdote from his epitaph relates that, when he was 3 years old, his parents took the child to a temple to pay homage to the Buddha. Looking up at a stupa, he asked, "Who made its wooden stampa, Bumis?" And, greatly surprised, the people around realized that he was a born artist. When he was about 7, his temperament was sober, like an adult. At school, he mastered his textbooks and became a good calligrapher in such a short time that even the venerable elders acknowledged their inferiority. He could memorize treatises on art as soon as he heard them read. Before he left Nepal for Tibet, he was already an expert in painting, modeling, and casting images. During the 13th century, there was a renowned emperor in China called Kublai Khan. He was great lover of art and architecture. In April 1260, Kublai was elected as the Great Khan by his own supporters to rival the claim of his younger brother, Eric Buck. Thus a civil war was launched between the brothers for the leadership of the empire. In December 1260, he appointed Dragon Chagil Phagpa his imperial preceptor, and granted him a jade seal and the position of leader of Buddhism. By doing so, Kublai officially acknowledged Phagpa as his highest religious authority, and was obliged to patronize the Sakya teaching. In return, he expected the Sakya sect to provide religious sanction. Kublai Khan asked his spiritual guru Phagpa to build a golden stupa in Tibet. The building of the stupa was not only a tribute to the Sakya Pandita, but intended also as a project to win religious blessing in a critical year. Due to the decline of Buddhism in the subcontinent, Tibet looked upon Nepal as the source of Buddhist wisdom and philosophy. So the patriarch of Tibetan Buddhism's Shakya sect asked the king of Nepal, Devmala, for 100 artists, but the king could muster only 80. The artists bound for Tibet were ordered to choose a leader from among themselves. Perhaps due to the uncertainty of their future, nobody was courageous enough to take up the responsibility, except for the confident Arniko. When the king tried to discourage him because of his youth, Arniko replied, "My body is indeed young, but my mind is not. the king eventually made him the team leader of 80 artisans, and sent him to Lhasa. 16-year-old Arniko, already known as a child prodigy, volunteered to lead them. In 1261, when Arniko arrived in Tibet, he impressed Phagpa at their first meeting. Phagpa immediately recognized his exceptional artistic skill and administrative ability, and entrusted him to supervise the construction. The stupa was built within the main hall of the Sakya monastery. Arniko spent 2 years on this project. After its completion, Phagpa was so impressed with Arniko's stupas, Phagpa was unwilling to let him leave when Arniko asked for permission to return to Nepal. Erik Bug finally submitted to Kublai at Shangdu on August 21, 1264. By this time, Kublai Khan had defeated Erik Bug, and both Kublai and Phagpa must have felt that the construction of the stupa in the Sakya monastery had gained religious merit that contributed to Kublai's military victory and other achievements. As imperial preceptor, Phagpa was ready to go to the court and disseminate his sect's teachings. Since no artist in China could make the bewildering array of Himalayan tantric deities, which would be indispensable for his religious activities, he needed to bring with him someone who could. Arniko was a natural choice. Instead of going back to Nepal, Phagpa encouraged Arniko to go to the Mongol court to present himself to Kublai Khan. Phagpa accepted Arniko as his disciple and initiated him into secret Buddhist treatises, thus elevating his social status above an ordinary artisan. Thus, having discovered Arniko, Phagpa personally prepared and trained Arniko for his future tasks at the court. On hearing his recommendation, the Kublai immediately ordered the envoy to summon Arniko. After he arrived, the emperor looked at him at some length before asking, "Are you afraid to come to the big country?" He answered, "The sage regards people in all directions as his sons. When a son comes to his father, what is there to fear?" "Why do you come?" he replied. "My family has been living in the West for generations. I took the imperial edict to build the stupa in Tibet for 2 years. I saw constant wars there, and wish your majesty could pacify there. I come for sentient beings." "What do you practice?" he said. "I take my mind as my teacher, and know roughly painting, casting, and carving." The emperor was greatly pleased, and asked young Arniko to repair an important bronze idol, presented as a gift by a Song emperor. The model was damaged, and no person in the court had been able to repair it. It took him 2 years to finish the restoration. In February 1265, Arniko finished the restoration, and the statue looked so perfect that emperor, and even the most skilled artists of China, greatly admired his work. Then after, the emperor offered Arniko with all important imperial projects. In Yuan, China, he designed and built many buildings. He made stupas in Tibet, Beijing, and Mutation. He also showed his skills in casting statues of Lord Buddha, painting, embroidering images on silk, engraving, portraitures, and making instrument to show earthquake, etc. One of the most important projects Arniko handled is the White Stupa of MIAOYING Temple in Beijing, which was the largest structure at that time. The consecration of White Dagaba took almost 8 years, started in 1271, and ended in 1279. During the time White Daboga was being constructed, in 1273, Arniko was made supervisor-in-chief of all classes of artisans. When White Daboga was completed, a big religious function was organized by the emperor to initialize it. Upon arrival of the emperor to the White Daboga, a powerful heavenly light beam struck on it, and the White Daboga glowed. The emperor was astonished to see this, and believed Arniko had divine powers. The White Daboga was later declared a historical treasure, and is still standing today. It rises to a height of 50.9 meters, and has a diameter of over 30 meters at its base. 13 broad circular bands of molding, called the 13 heavens, divide its surface. At the apex of the cone is an umbrella-like bronze disc structure, with 36 bronze bells hanging from its rim. At the very top is a small bronze pagoda, in itself a work of art. In 1961, then Chinese Premier Zhou Enlai signed a proclamation stating that the temple was to be protected as a treasure. This proclamation kept the White Stupa safe during the Cultural Revolution of the 1960s. In 1976, the temple was seriously damaged by the Dongshan earthquake. The top of stupa tilted to one side, and the bricks and mortar supporting the stupa crumbled off, and many relics were broken. In 1978, the Beijing Department of Cultural Relics undertook the task of repairing and renovating the temple. The courtyards, the four-corner pavilions, the Hall of the Buddhas of the Three Ages, the Hall of the Heavenly Kings, Shian Wangdian, in front of the stupa, the Hall of the Seven Buddhas, and the stupa itself, were repaired and renovated. The complex was again renovated in 2010. Arniko organized a workshop for arts at the Imperial Palace. He had about 200 apprentices from Nepal, China, Tibet, and Mongolia. He also wrote a book on measurements and proportions for making statue of Lord Buddha. A copy of this book was presented to Bhikshu Amritananda Mahastavir of Anandakudi, Bihar in 1959 during his visit to China. In his later life, Arniko renounced monkhood, remarried and settled in China. Apart from his Nepali wife, Chaitwa Laxmi, he had 2 Mongolian wives and 7 Han Chinese wives. Together they had 6 sons and 8 daughters. Arniko established a school of Nepali art in China, which trained at least 2 of his own sons and thousands of Chinese artists. By drawing inspiration from the artistic traditions of Pala, Nepal, and China, Arniko single-handedly created a new form of court art and promoted it through the huge artisan agencies under his leadership. Arniko was accorded with high honors during his lifetime. He was named director of all artisan classes in 1273 and trained many Chinese craftsmen in the Sakya style. In 1274, he was given a silver plate to wear with an image of a tiger on it. The emperor became very fond of him and gave him the title Duke of Liang as an honor and made him a minister in his court. He was also rewarded with 15,000 acres of farmland near Beijing, 1,000 serfs, and 100 heads of cattle. Arniko is among the very few foreigners whose biography can be found in Chinese imperial history books. Arniko lived in China until his death. He died on March 11, 1306, at the age of 62. Of his death, it is recorded. On March 8, 1306, he looked at the people around himself and said, "If I am going, you should set up curtains in the hall and a couch, so that I can pass away in peaceful sleep." The next day, he took a bath and went to court. After returning, he appeared ill. Palace envoys and doctors visited, but he passed away in sleep on the March 11, 1306. The emperor grieved over his death. After hearing the news and halted the court session, he ordered palace officials to take care of the family and reward the family 25,000 taels of silver. The emperor ordered the authorities concerned to make arrangements for the funeral. That night, a star fell into the courtyard. The next day, saw icicles on the trees. 7 days after, on March 17, his remains were cremated, according to Nepali custom. On the 15th of July, his ashes were buried in the stupa at Gangxiuan, Xiangshan, Wanping country. It is summarized in his epitaph that during his lifetime, Arniko completed 3 stupas, 9 great Buddhist monasteries, 2 Confucian shrines, 1 Taoist temple, as well as the archway of Yuntang, and countless images and objects used in and out of the court. Arniko also crafted scientific instruments like armillary spheres and water clocks. However, artworks that can be definitely attributed to him are rare. Arniko was also a fine painter, and he executed a number of portraits of the imperial family. The Cleveland Museum says its image of Green Terra is by Arniko, while the portraits of Kublai Khan and his wife Chabi, now located in the National Palace Museum in Taipei, are believed to be his handiwork. A bronze statue of Manjushri, now in the Palace Museum in Beijing, and a brocade image of a three-faced, six-armed Guhaya Samaja, now in the Potala Palace in Lhasa, are by Arniko. Arniko's imperial portraits represent the watershed between Sung, Yuan, and later Mode imperial portraits. The aim of later portraits were no longer to suggest virtuous conduct, but physiognomy. This approach was followed not only in later Yuan imperial portraits, but also in the Ming and Qing imperial portraits, which became increasingly frontal and rigid, and eventually more and more realistic, under the new influence of European portraiture. The history of Chinese Buddhist art witnessed three major waves of artistic influences from Central and South Asia: Gandhara art before the Tang, Gupta art during the Tang, and Pala-Himalayan art during the Yuan. Arniko is the figure representing the third wave. The artworks of Arniko, from his institutions, stupas, and the two Yuan portraits, demonstrate drawing inspiration from the artistic traditions of Pala, Nepal, and China. After the collapse of Mongol rule in China, Arniko's artistic legacy and innovation continued to influence Buddhist art at the Ming and Qing courts. The Nepalese government, in recognition of his achievements, had issued postal stamps in his name to honor him. The 115 kilometers Araniko highway that links Kathmandu with Kadari, northeast of the Kathmandu Valley, on the Nepal-China border, is also named after him. Arniko is considered as one of the heroes of Nepal, who made the country proud. Thanks for watching the video. For more updates to my new videos, press the bell icon, and please don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe to support my channel. Thank you.